Right now, let's hear more from Professor Bill Buchanan from the School of Computing at Edinburgh, Napier University. Good morning, Bill. We heard in the news clip you were making the point you think the NHS is a pretty soft target, and Gordon's just raised the issue that it turns out the NHS is using a Windows XP program which Microsoft no longer supports. Is this about not spending enough on security?
Yeah, well, you'll find that finance companies are spending a great deal on their infrastructure and have 24/7 support. I think in the case of the NHS, it isn't just XP systems. I think it's probably unlikely that many of the systems now are based on XP. All Windows systems are actually exposed to this vulnerability, and Microsoft actually announced it on the 14th of March. So the NHS has had a whole month at least to be able to patch their systems. Along with this, there's basic things that they could have done on their firewall. There's a port on a firewall known as 445, which should have been closed off, and it was that port that allowed the external intruders to be able to spread this malware.
So that's about training?
That's about training and awareness. Really, it was a race against time. We call the phase between the announcement of a critical vulnerability to the time that it's spread as a weaponization phase. So there are many gangs around the world and individuals who will go ahead and use the vulnerability and then find the weapon. So the basic way that the ransomware got in was through this critical vulnerability on virtually all Windows operating systems. So anything that was actually not patched could have been open to it. When we scanned the internet recently, there was about 500,000 servers and systems exposed live to the whole internet. As far as we can tell, there's over 113,000 infections at the current time. Luckily, only about 3,000 of them are actually live. So this is a wide-scale problem, and really companies are exposing their whole infrastructure by not closing the firewall and patching their systems.
But what do you make of the reports that this vulnerability was discovered by the NSA in America some time ago, but they thought, oh, right, let's hang on to this because it might make a useful weapon, as it were. I mean, you've been talking about weaponizing the system. And they didn't tell Microsoft until recently. Had they alerted them earlier, this could have been avoided. Is that credible to you?
Yeah, that looks as if what's happened. I mean, obviously, if you can keep something secret, then you have an advantage over your adversaries. So in this case, the NSA had found a vulnerability, kept it secret, but very little things can be kept secret on the internet. And it was Shadow Broker who released the details of this vulnerability. Microsoft knew about it before it was actually announced that they had it. So Microsoft had the opportunity to patch. They then told the world, as I said, on the 14th of March, it was really a race since then to make sure that all the systems were patched. When we scan the internet, we still see academia in the UK. We see a lot of public sector computers exposed to the internet. And these days, you can't really keep your systems private behind the firewall. They are exposed to the rest of the world.
Okay. Who do you think's done this?
I couldn't really say. From what we can see, there's 3 Bitcoin wallets that are live just now. No money has been taken out of those wallets. When I just checked a few minutes ago, there's 53 Bitcoins 53 transactions have been paid. So 53 people around the world have paid the ransom. Typically about 0.18 Bitcoin, which is $300, but that ransom increases to about $600. And from what we can tell, there's about £10,700 that has actually been paid to whoever created this.
Actually, Bill, if then the money's paid and you can trace where it's going, can you not trace that back, or can they cover that?
Well, this is cryptocurrency, so it doesn't really exist through a bank or through a Visa transaction, so it's quite difficult. What will typically happen is that the malicious person will create another Bitcoin account and then will move it into that account, and then they might move it into another cryptocurrency, and they will generally obfuscate the whole path of them receiving money. But the whole world is watching these 3 Bitcoin wallets to see how many
See
people
what
are
happens.
paying.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to trace the person behind it because Bitcoin is pseudo-anonymized, so it doesn't really give you any details of the person who's sitting with the wallets.
Is it your understanding that the spread was stopped accidentally by a cybersecurity expert who found an unrecognised domain name and registered it, and that broke it?
Well, what you get is that there's a whole lot of people that will pick the bones of the malware very quickly. Once you get a sample, it's almost like taking a DNA sample. They will pick the bones, look at the code, and they will find the little address that it contacts, what's called the command and control center. So the command and control center exists on the dark web. That's the place that actually creates the encryption key. It will handle the payments and so on. So it was found that the malware was actually contacting a certain address on the internet. And all that happened was that this researcher registered that domain because it wasn't registered just now. Typically, there'll be a few addresses that the malware will pick, and one of them will eventually connect. But this researcher found one of the early ones wasn't registered, so he created what's called a sinkhole. A sinkhole is just a place that the malware tries to contact to, and then you try and disable it in some way or try to stop it from operating.
Bill, thank you so much for that. That's Professor Bill Buchanan from the School of Computing at Edinburgh Napier University. And obviously we'll keep you updated on this throughout the programme if there are developments.